Welcome to the Wise Practice Podcast. I'm so glad you're here hanging out with me today. And we have been doing some episodes about the season of Lent. So you can go back to last week's episode, learn a lot more about the history of Lent, why it's important for practice owners. And today we're really going to tackle a little bit more of the practicality of Lent. Like, how do I practice this as a practice owner and make it something that impacts me, that I understand, that's applicable? So, if you are someone who doesn't know anything about it, head to last week's episode. And if you know some and you're trying to figure out how to make this work within the way that you run your practice, this episode is for you. So before we jump into that, though, I do have a companion to go along with the Lent season, which is the practice of becoming Lent devotional. You can grab that on Amazon. Would love for you to check it out. And I think it's so cool to consider each of us as practice owners walking through this season together, also reading the same devotionals together. It's the same reflections. And these devotionals are really specific to you. Like, how do you run a practice and how do you understand your faith within that? And applicable stories of my own experiences as a practice owner. So I'm excited to be sharing all that with you. So, as Lent is approaching, it can be so easy to get involved in rules and how to's, right? Even this recently, I was with some girlfriends and we were chatting about faith and religion. And it was a conversation that started getting into rules. And I just found myself feeling icky on the inside. And I was like, look, yeah, there are things that we can do to help our faith, but truly it's about the nature of the law or the nature of the work we do, not necessarily about the right and wrong behind it. And I think Lent can also be that same way. So I don't want to come into this conversation of, hey, during Lent, you have to fast this way, you have to follow this way, you have to do this thing. It is not that. It is about experiencing God and whatever that looks like for you. And I want you to find ways that you can embrace Lent for yourself and changes that you want to make for yourself, and not because someone listed a bunch of rules that you had to follow or you put rules on yourself, the shoulds, right? So as it's approaching, I want us to really be thinking about relationship. This is about a season in time for you to engage more in your relationship with God. Just like when you want to spend time with a friend or maybe your spouse, you devote time aside for that. You might choose not to do something. I might choose not to go hang out with a friend if my husband wants to take me on a date, right? So we're choosing one thing over another because we value and care about relationship. It's not about a performance, and there are certainly many biblical passages about not performing, right? I mean, I even think about the Pharisee who was in prayer beside the person who was humble, and the Pharisee wanted everyone to see him praying, or people who wanted to put money into the temple so that everybody could see the money that they were giving, right? It's not about fasting in a sense that we want everyone to see what kind of Lent practices we're having. It's not a performance. And it's never meant to be that way. It is a deep personal experience of us and God. And so today I want to talk about the practice of Lent, right? Which actually is why I call the book The Practice of Becoming. We are practicing in our work, which is a practice. We're practicing becoming more like Christ. And we do that through the practice of Lent. That this is not a rigid, perfect conversation, it's intentionality behind what we do during the season of Lent. So I do think that Lent can quickly become about comparison, even within a family, one person doing something that someone else isn't doing. We want Lent to be about helping one another find God in the midst of it. So we do encourage our kids, one another. Hey, what is it that you want to lay aside for Lent? But it's not a comparison. It's a helping one another. It's holding one another accountable out of love. There is certainly a fine line there that you have to be very careful about. And so I want you to enter into this season knowing that you're not comparing yourselves to one another. You're not comparing yourself to what you maybe previously have done during Lent. You're only doing what you feel called to in this moment, in this season of Lent. So starting to kind of ask yourself, what is it that I want to give up so that I can gain more of God in my life? But going back to this idea of comparison, when I was in college, I worked at a campus ministry, the Wesley Foundation at the University of Georgia. And we did a lot of fasting. And I did a lot of different kinds of fasting. And we're going to talk in a minute about fasting. But I did a lot of different types of things. And one year we had a fast, and I decided to fast from regular foods, but I was going to have smoothies. And during that season of, I don't know, it was like 3 or 5 days, I had smoothies. And that was what worked for me and what I was doing in my relationship with God. But one of the people at the ministry with me really got on to me for drinking a smoothie. Said that it wasn't real fasting. What? Right? Sure, there is a very rigid, clear line of what fasting actually is, but fasting can be lots of things. It doesn't necessarily have to just be food. It can be anything that we're separating ourselves from God. I know that some people would probably say that fasting has to do with food. And if that's what you feel called to, then that's what you should do. But you don't have to limit it to that. And you always want to make sure that you're caring for yourself in that season. If you have a history of eating disorders or other issues that might make food difficult or medical concerns, like you should not be fasting food. Period. You should be doing something else because then you're going to be spending all your time not feeling well, focusing on that. You might have a medical problem. You might drop back into an eating disorder. Like there's too many concerns. So I don't want you to be doing that at all. Don't see this as a rigid policy. See it as an invitation to something. So at the core of Lent, it's not about that comparison. It's not about someone telling you you had a smoothie and you shouldn't have. It's really about that intentionality, choosing to slow down and making room for God. So noticing where he is, what he's doing in the world. It's not about deprivation for the sake of suffering, self-sacrifice. It's about a gentle removing of something that's filling space that you want to create for God. So fasting is a spiritual practice, just like meditation and prayer and Bible reading, community, all the things. And when we fast and engage in this spiritual practice, it reveals something within our hearts and it makes room for God. We become aware of our distractions, our unhealthy habits. We become aware of the things that we find comfort in instead of comfort in God. This awareness is going to create that invitation. Not that it's here to create shame, but connection. So back to let's do some like practicality here with fasting. Fasting is not always about food. It's about caring for yourself, especially like I said, for health conditions, trauma history, season of life, food might not be something that you can do. But if it is something you want to consider, there's lots of different ways that you can fast during Lent. I know that the Catholics have a very specific way that they do it, and they don't eat meat except on certain days. So that's something you could consider. I've done a Daniel fast in the past where I did just fruits and vegetables. And I'll tell you, in my mind, I thought, oh, I got this. Like, this will be good. Boy, it was a lot harder than I ever thought it was going to be. So that's something that you could consider. Maybe there's a specific food or drink that you rely too much on and you want to let go of that because you want to rely more on God or more focused on God. So maybe it's coffee or alcohol or maybe desserts. I've certainly fasted desserts before. So there's lots of different ways that you can fast from food that is not complete fasting. Or if you want to completely fast, you certainly could do that. I would encourage you to do a little research about what that looks like as you fast, like how to enter into that, because you don't want a lot of people want to gorge themselves right before fast. Let me tell you, that doesn't work well. I'll also tell you that stopping your fast on Taco Bell just because the commercials looked so good because you were hungry is also not a good idea. So there's a lot of different ways that you can fast. So I encourage you to look into those and consider those. I also want to talk about what if you feel like food is just not the thing that you can do. I want you to also look at what are things that are distracting me or keeping me from quiet time with God or being thoughtful or in prayer. I've seen people say that's social media. They're spending too much time scrolling, so they get off social media for 6 weeks. Maybe you find that you are going to other people too much for your comfort. So when you have a decision that comes up or a concern, you go to somebody else instead of going to God. So maybe you fast from getting other people's opinions. One time I fasted from work, and I know that sounds crazy, but I work a lot. I'm just going to be honest. I get up early and work, and sometimes I work when I get home. Just depends on what's going on. But I did a fast where I did not respond to any emails or work except for between 9 in the morning and 6 at night. That was really challenging for me, but that allowed me to have space from 6 at night to 9 in the morning for prayer and reflection. And that was really good. Maybe you want to fast from checking your email, that you compulsively check your email. Maybe you're just going to check it 2 times a day and you're going to put a time limit on it. Maybe you want to fast from other activities. Maybe you've overcommitted yourself, and so you want to back down from things that you're doing that aren't necessary. I've known someone who fasted from shopping on Amazon. So they didn't shop on Amazon for 6 weeks, which was interesting to see how often you actually go and look at Amazon. Sometimes we don't even know what we're spending our time and energy on until we take it away and we notice it, right? So it's anything that's distracting you from God or from your life, from the calling that you have. So I think some questions for you to consider, especially if you're able to pull out a journal and write, is what should I give up? What is in the way between me and God? What is distracting me from doing His work? What pulls my attention away? And start kind of writing and thinking about that. But remember, fasting is not the goal necessarily, right? It's a part of it, but the goal is to encounter God more, right? Filling that empty space with what matters. Because if you are to fast and then you just do work during that time that you would have eaten, why does that matter, right? So it's taking that and filling it with something. So maybe you want to fast just lunch each day and you want to take 20 to 30 minutes every day to pray for your practice. Or maybe you take 20 to 30 minutes to do a meditation or a Lectio Divina in your office as you take away that meal. So it's about letting go of the things we depend on. So instead of scrolling social media, you're spending time in prayer. It's about how you're filling that space. If we fast without filling space, it's just absence and there's no transformation that occurs. So some other ideas is reading scripture or just being in silence, which is very difficult. So maybe instead of scrolling social media for 15 minutes before bed, you spend 15 minutes in silence. That would be very difficult. Reflection, inviting God's presence. Or maybe you do something surrounding giving. Lent is a season of giving. It is one of the most overlooked parts. It's actually a part that I think the Catholic Church does very well at because they do financial giving that goes along with the season of Lent. So as we are letting go, we're inviting ourselves, or God is inviting us really, to give. So maybe there's a cause that you've been wanting to give to that you haven't. So it could be that you're giving of your money, but maybe you're giving your food, right? It would make sense that you don't eat a meal and you take the money from that meal or the actual food from that meal and you donate it to somebody in need, to an organization, or maybe you go and find homeless people in your area that you can give a meal to. Maybe it's time. So maybe you take out time that you were doing something else and you give that time to your community. So you go and actually work in a soup kitchen 1 day a week during Lent. You go volunteer somewhere, or maybe you do some kind of volunteer related to mental health. Maybe you give an hour to an organization that provides counseling in your area, or maybe you go speak somewhere for free because it's a way that you're giving back. So it could be your energy, your time, your thought. Reflect on what that could look like. Maybe there's an opportunity that you've been given and you have said to yourself, I don't have time to serve in that way. Maybe Lent is the season for you getting rid of something that was taking your time and then serving in that way. This makes Lent a very personal experience because we truly are transformed by our work, right? And so when we literally get out there and work for something and care for something, God is transforming us in the process. When we give our money to something, we're saying that this is not mine, this is yours, and I'm not going to let money control me. It's drawing us inward by moving outward and caring for others. I want to also remind you that Sundays are our mini Easters, right? I mean, you could do this however you want, but it's something to be considered. And it was always really helpful for me in my seasons of Lent that Easter, mini Easters, are those Sundays. So it's a time that we celebrate. So we fast throughout the week, and then Sunday we break our fast. It's interesting how, depending on what it is that you're fasting, as you get into it, you start to find that you actually are happier and more fulfilled. So it might be the social media thing. Maybe you're fasting that, and then you get to Sunday and you're like, I just don't really care about getting on, right? It's the change that's happening within you. Of course, for me, when I fasted sweets, I was ready to have chocolate cake on a Sunday or a chocolate cookie. But many Easters are what happens on Sundays during Lent. These are reminders of the resurrection and hope that you have in the midst of your fasting. So you're embracing repentance and joy and grace on those Sundays because we get to live as if it's Easter every day, right? Long term. It's a time for celebration. So many Easters on Sundays, they're not meant to weigh us down. It's to return us to what matters and what we're really excited about. And it's the same concept that we go to church on Sundays because we celebrate together in that time. So however you choose to practice Lent, my hope is that you practice it honestly and with gentleness and intention. And if you're looking for some direction on this is what the Lent devotional is for. Maybe you're having a hard time being consistent with quiet times. I know that is something that I've had a hard time with before. And so having a devotional book each morning, and I consistently have some kind of book that I use in the mornings. When you have that and you can focus on it, it helps to be able to engage. And, the season of Lent is about self reflection and kind of the sinful nature of who we are and letting those things go. And so the Lent devotional book, The Practice of Becoming, each day you sit down, it tells you what day it is in the Lent journey, and you read a Bible verse in a devotional. And it also has some stories of being a practice owner. And then you kind of look at how am I running my practice? What are the sinful parts of me or the personal parts of me that are causing a negative impact on my practice or on me, or how am I missing God's calling? And so we have reflection questions on each one that are going to be personal to you on your journey. And then you could write in the book if you wanted to. There's white space, or you could have a journal, but there are some journal prompts on some of the devotionals to be able to kind of take it to that deeper level. So if you're looking to engage in this Lenten season, I highly encourage that you grab that book because it can be a companion for you throughout the process. There are no devotions on Easter not Easter, the mini Easters on Sundays, because those are Sundays, but the rest of the week, including Saturday, has a devotional. But I do have one on Easter Sunday because that is a time for celebration. So if you're looking for something to be grounded, flexible, realistic, and helpful for you, I encourage you to grab the book, The Practice of Becoming. It is available on Amazon, and this will help you through this Lenten season. And I'm excited to be able to offer that to you guys. It is such a joy and honor to work with you, to have this podcast, and that we are a group of practice owners coming together with faith in mind, and that we could do a podcast about the Lent season, but also about our business. I just think it's the most beautiful thing. So I appreciate that you hang out with me every single week. I'm looking forward to what's to come in 2026. I'm looking forward to hearing about your Lent experience. As you're going through this, I really encourage you to email me, reach out to me. I love hearing about your stories, what it means to you, and how God's working in your life. Thank you again for listening to the podcast. You're the best.